Okay, the best glue I have found so far. So this is a bit of a strange one, and it only came as a mistake, well, to me. So I'm going to use this is a piece of paper out of a magazine, and I've got some things here just to thin this glue out. So it's Elmer's glue, and this is my second jar because I thought there was something wrong with it. You'll see, look, see? Hard. Can't tip it out, can't pour it out. It's rock solid. Sort of like very thick jelly. So I'm just scooping out a little bit, and this is what I like about this glue so much, is this is $8 for a jar, and you can buy it most places. And you just scoop out a little bit. That's a teaspoon that I'm using there. And I've got some water. So I'm just going to I like it to be very hot, but, still I want to be able to put my fingers in it. So for me, I found that the water that I used wasn't quite hot enough. So it just means it's going to take a while to get through mixing it up. So I'm using a really old paintbrush that I've got lying around because I know that one day I'm going to forget to wash it out and I will kill my brush. So mixing, and it is going to take a while. So I'm checking the glue here, just making sure that it's all dissolved, and that's where the hot water really, really helps. Look at that. Still a bit gooey and sticky, but you can see that it's starting to sort of melt. So here's some glue that I've made earlier. This is my normal jar, and you can see that it's not nice and clear. That's not because the glue turned, that's because I keep forgetting to wash out my brushes. So, and still it's great glue. I'm just checking to make sure that I should be able to rub the glue between my fingers and it should feel slippery, but not like a normal glue like you would normally expect. So quite runny, and just that slippery feel is what I'm going for. Now it's starting to come into that sort of egg white feel. You can see it's almost like I'm making a meringue. And I'm checking here for a slippery feel rather than what it looks like. And I really should have used hot water. There you go, it's starting to drip when I pull the glue out. So that's going to be enough for me to work on today. So here's my piece of paper, and honestly it's just thin magazine paper, and I'm going to glue a couple of things on. So I've got some music paper. It's really old, so it's nice and porous. And I glue a little bit underneath, and I glue a little bit on top. I have seen some artists actually dip the paper into the glue, and that's great as well. Now this is what I mean about my glue always goes funny colours, because I forgot that this is watercolour, so it's going to start to bleed. So this is a little bit of watercolour on tissue paper, and you can see already I just love how easy it is to use. And then of course I don't wash out my brush, you should, and I put it straight back in the glue. So my glue in this video is going to go a kind of green. This is baking paper or parchment paper, and I've just done a little shape with black gesso, mainly because that's the shape that I'm enjoying working with at the moment, and I just stick it on top. Baking paper is notoriously difficult to paste, so I will later on, maybe in the next video, I actually do have to do a few repairs on that, and that's fine. So now what I'm doing is I'm sponging it, and I'm sort of pressing down and then rolling away and holding my collage papers down a little bit. I'm just trying to get rid of the excess water. And now it's ready for a little bit of a dry with my hair dryer. So I'm going to show you how to get a nice smooth effect, get rid of all those air bubbles. So again, parchment paper, it doesn't stick to a lot of things. And I'm just using, well, the top of the glue will be fine, any flat surface really. And I'm just scrubbing around. I can't disrupt my papers, not at this part of the process, and I can get a really nice flattened effect, no bubbles, no anything. I'm a little bit easy peasy with the old technique. I suggest that you have a try and go slow, but you can see what you end up with. Now the magazine paper is way too thin for this process. I don't mind, I really don't care. For me, it's just, an easy way to get texture. Now, I would put the parchment paper, some clean, dry parchment paper on, and then I would start to layer it with some heavy objects. I've got a nice heavy book that I use, and that board that I put on top, that's just the back of an old frame. And ideally you want to leave it overnight. Just don't even touch it, leave it overnight. The baking paper will peel off and you're left with this. I cheated and I took the paper off and I dried it with my hairdryer. Make sure that it's all nice and, see, there you go, nice and dry. And then I'm just going to come in, and this is just some white gesso, and I'm going to glue it down with the gesso. And now I just go crazy. I've used a green. I like the text in there, so I'm not going to completely obliterate it. I have a sort of a rule of thumb of whatever you do, when you come to the next layer, leave some of it because it's all important. So a teeny tiny bit of this ghastly green, but it goes really nice when you put a little bit of the white gesso in it. And you can see I haven't cleaned my brush. I'm just scrubbing around. I'm working mainly within that little square in the magazine picture. Happy to go outside the square, but that's about as big as my end painting is going to be. Now I come and I clean my brush, and I'm actually going to show you how I like to clean my brushes. It's good for the environment and it's really easy to do. So I wipe my brush first, and then I wash it in some water. I have my water nearby, and that's the only water I use. I don't go and dunk everything in the tap, and I'm sort of really frugal with my water. So I'm just paddling around, and again, this is my next layer. The white hasn't dried completely, so it is tending to blend, kind of nice. And I'm trying to find ways to apply my next layer, but leave some of the original layer there. Those birds were annoying me. They were distracting me, so I'm just going over them. And you can use the rest of the painting as your palette as well. So there's my brush. I've wiped it off on my palette, or I can wash it with a rag, and then I scrub it out in my water. Now here's the system that I use. I wash it with, I'll just scrape it on my rag there, Then I have my dirty water, that's at the bottom of your screen, and I've got a rubber in there and a razor, and it has some serrations in there. So I sort of push it up and down on that, and it gets rid of all of the paint. And then I just check, and yep, my brush isn't sanitary, but it's clean enough. This is an old brush. I really like using old brushes, and it's ready to go again. So I've also got a pencil over there on the left, and I think I've dried my painting, I'm not sure, or we'll check together. And I'm just going to get a few marks in there. So have a look in part 2 and see what happens.